everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I'm your host, Daniela, the goofy noob, and I'm joined today by the collector.
Hey, this is David.
The intellectual introvert.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris.
And the deluxeifier.
Hello, it's Pete again.
Today is part 2 of our 3-part series where we each count down our top 15 board games of all time. So let's just get right into it. However, I won't be starting. I'm going to do my top 5. I'm new. I don't have 15. All right. Anyways, we'll each start with a quick recap of the games that were numbers 15 through 11 on the lists, then get today's countdown started at number 10. Chris, why don't you give us your 15 through 11 and then start us off today on number 10.
Sure. My 15 through 11 was Gaia Project, Ticket to Ride, Schadenfreude, Maracaibo, and El Grande. And now into the top 10. This one for me was a surprise when I saw it pop up this high, but then I reflected on it and I realized just how much I enjoy this game when we play it. My number 10 top game of all time is Lock Up, a role-player tale, designed by Stan Kordonsky and published by Thunderworks Games. And Daniela's already shaking her head. In the simplest form, this is set collection and order fulfillment set in a prison. But as you're placing your workers, it's area majority that's going to determine how much, if any, resources you get from that location at the end of the round. And that little twist of taking 2 of your workers and placing them face down so that no one else knows for sure what strength they are. And with each turn, they get a little more information to suss out which member of your crew you put there. To me, it's just brilliant. I enjoy the agony of not knowing, and I also enjoy inflicting that agony on others for what in the end is a really fun game. BGG has Lock Up at 1,291 overall with just a 7.4 rating. We covered this in episode 17. I said then what a travesty it was, and I still think that it's so much better than that. And as a result, Lock Up, a role-player tale, is my number 10 top game of all time.
I want to like this game, honestly. I like the theme. I like the graphics on it. I think it is interesting. I don't know why it doesn't click for me. Every time we've pulled it out, for some reason, something's not working for me. So open to playing more games of it, but I don't know, the last 2-3 times we've played, it's been brutal for me, and I don't know why that is.
Yeah, this one's not on my list primarily because I don't own it. And I talked about earlier episode that I really kept the games that I own on here. There's a lot of good games that I probably could have been in the contention, but I stripped it out. But I do like the game. It is very interactive, I think, really making those decisions on, where you're going to go and you're gonna get beat up sometime in there. So. Yeah, it's just like being in prison.
Yeah, just like prison, yeah.
Yep. I really like this game, too. You probably will hear a little bit more from me later, so we'll leave it at that.
Awesome.
Pete, name your 15 to 11, and then tell us what number 10 is for you.
Okay, well, starting at 15 was In the Hall of the Mountain King, followed by Dune Imperium, Viticulture Essential Edition with the Tuscany expansion, Clank Legacy at number 12, and number 11 was My Father's Work. Going into my number 10, Daniela, this is a game that I think was one of the first ones that I taught you, and it is called Merchants of the Dark Road. This came out in 2022, the BGG rating of 7.4 with a weight of 3.22. It's ranked 1,030. I think this should be a lot higher than that. This is also going to get one of my deluxe ratings. This is a beautiful game straight out of the box. You don't really have to deluxeify anything on it, but it really adds to the game. And actually, I do have my eye on some of the bags that I don't have yet. So those are in one of my shopping carts, just so you know. I'm waiting for Game Nerds Day on Friday to place that order. So in this game, it's a pick-up and delivery game. You have 13 rounds. This is really a dice manipulation, dice rolling game, but you're also using those dice for a various number of ways. You can use them to craft things. You use them also when you move them. The number of pips are going to be how far you can go along this rondel. So you're doing a pickup and delivery. You're picking up either travelers and you're trying to take them to the different far off cities, you're creating or crafting equipment that you're going to sell. Sometimes in order to get those travelers with you got to sell them a component. But all along this, you're fulfilling orders. It's really interesting because there's a really cool market where the price or the value of these components are going to change, and others people can influence that. There's actions you can take to spin this wheel, which is going to change the price of those components, which I think is fantastic. There's also a little Tetris-y game to it because you have your wagon or your player board, and you can only carry so many components, and some components are much bigger than the others. There's a lot of little interesting things with it. I really like this game. There is an expansion coming out. I'm looking forward to getting that. That's going to add a little bit more to it. Just a really fun game. If you guys are interested to know a little bit more about my take on this, you can check out a detailed review I did on BGG. It was about a year ago, and you'll find it in the hot take section.
This is one of the first games that Pete actually taught me, and it was one of the meatier, heavier games that I had played, and it took me quite a bit to figure out there are so many different mechanisms that were going on during the game. I will touch on this game in another episode. So,
I thought you might. It was.
No, you didn't.
Yes,
you don't know me.
It's on my prediction list. I have never played.
You've never even played it.
I have never played. You keep telling me I need to play this, but then no one ever puts it on the table. and I know pretty
That's our
much.
strategy.
Yeah, I know. I know pretty much nothing about this game. I actually, up until I looked it up when I was doing my predictions for what might be on people's lists, I thought it was a Shem Phillips Garfield games because it just sounds like, Architects of the West Kingdom and Wayfarers of the South Tigers, Merchants of the Dark
Creek,
Road.
yeah.
But it's not. Beyond that, I have nothing to say because I've never played it and no one's ever taken
We
the
will
time
play
to
it
show
this
me.
year.
Sure. we
I
will.
think the holidays are coming eventually, so we'll have some time.
All right.
Yeah, it's a very pretty game for sure.
You got the blinged out version. I guess you'll talk about it
I
later.
do. David, you're number 10, but first take us through 15 through 11.
Yeah, so just a quick recap. I had it as my number 15 game as Sequence, then as Schadenfreude, then My City, then The Keen is Dead, the second edition, and then Planet Unknown is where I left it at. And so starting for my top 10, my number 10 game of all times right now is After the Empire. It was made in 2021. It was by Evan Halbert and Ryan Mock. And this is a game where you are building and customizing your own little castle on the board. It looks really cool on the table. Like if you ever think of like a castle, like the components of it, you're really building kind of this 3D component castle. And you start with like wood components and you slowly upgrade them if you have enough resources and money and time to a nice stone facade. And the reason why I really like this game is that you're managing a lot of kind of worker placement along with hand management and resource management. And you're trying to basically say to yourself, how can I defend this castle from invaders? Because at the end of each round, you're going to have invaders attacking your castle, sometimes from multiple sides, sometimes from all the sides, and you just don't know necessarily always where they're going to be attacking from. And the reason why I kind of like games like this is because everybody at the table is getting attacked during the attack round at the same time. So your goal is to try to be the best survivor out of everybody else's castles, and we're all dealing with the same AI kind of component of invaders always kind of invading us. And sometimes, if your castle is too rich, they'll target the richest castles more than they will the weakest castles, and sometimes vice versa, because they know that if your castle's better, that you'll have more wealth for them to take. So I really love this game. I love the way it looks on the table. It reminds me when I was a kid and I was playing with like Lincoln Logs and Legos, and we're always like building forts and stuff. And this is just kind of a nice kind of like toy kind of game with a really actual strategic element where I love where we could sit at the table and everybody's like crying out because their castles are all getting torn down at the same time. And you're laughing because maybe you predicted where they would come from and you're like, ha! My wall on the west side is still standing and everybody else's is gone. So I like this game. Have you guys played this game, or some of you might have?
I have not, but I feel like we were supposed to play it at one of our meetups and we didn't because I recognize this game. I feel like I had prepped for this game, but I have never actually played it.
Yeah, I've played this game. We played it a couple times. I think Dave, our fifth meeple, played with us. This was one I was looking for on Kickstarter. I think it was on Kickstarter. I don't remember if it was GameFound or whatever. I almost bought it, but I was thinking that I wasn't going to be able to have a good play group who would enjoy this because it's really a castle rush coming at you, and you are going to get waylaid, and that's just not kind of the game that I play a lot. So I'm glad I did get to play it with you, David. I would play this again. Be ready to get beat up if you're going to play it, though.
I walked in when you guys were playing one day. I don't know if I came later, what the story was behind that, but it looked like everybody was having miserable time, and which was quite interesting. And then things were being demoed and ruined, and people were moving all over the board. So it looked like an interesting setup. I know what you're saying, David, about the castles and building and all the walls you guys were building. So it looks very nice laid out. Chris, what's your number 9?
Yeah, my number 9 was new to me this year. We covered this game in episode 19, and we discovered again today because my number 9 top game of all time is Lost Ruins of Arnak, designed by Min and Elwin and published by Czech Games Edition. This is 4 players max, so we don't get to play it often in our group, but I love the archaeology theme. I think for me, this finds the sweet spot of making the puzzle hard enough to be a challenge, but not so hard that your head hurts the whole time you're playing it. You only have 2 workers, but then you also have multi-use cards, as well as using your resources to move up the research track or buy new cards, and you're looking for the optimum sequence of all of that to give you the advantage. And I think that's really fun when you realize that if you do A and then B and then C, you can finally do the real action you were trying to do in the first place. And then if you want to ramp it up, you get the expansion, you have variable player powers. If you want to play solo, there's a whole solo campaign available for free, and the components are also really well done. And then if you play with Pete, you even get some really awesome compasses as well. So BGG has Lost Ruins of Arnak at 28 overall with an 8.1 rating. I think that makes sense, but for me personally, Lost Ruins of Arnak is my number 9 top game of all time.
I do enjoy this game. It made my top 20. Didn't make it on our list that I'm doing here. It has some great decisions to make in the game. You have your cards. Using those cards at the right time, I think, is important because they are multi-use kind of. And, do you want to use that for the gold or do you want to use it as an action point? I do like that card play of the game.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game where I think when I first played it, I was really high on it. I almost got, burned out too fast on it. And then I realized that I feel like there are better paths to victory than other ones, and maybe some of the expansions would maybe mix things up for me a little bit. But it was a game that, is definitely on my top 50 list somewhere, but I don't exactly know where. But it was a game where it came out hot, and then it slowly, as I played it more, kind of faded a little bit for me. But it's still a great game.
Yeah, I really like Lost Ruins. We've played that quite a few times this year. I like it both with the expansion or without. I can play it both ways. I do still think that there is something to be said for the archaeology track with the book and the magnifying glass. People are flying up that the entire time that we're playing all the time, and I'm like, I just need to get to that. And then, if I don't have one of those little ruin pieces to get past the one level on there, you're screwed. And, Pete, what do you got for your number 9?
Okay, my number 9 is Coloma, and specifically, guess again, the deluxe version of this. It came out in 2019 as a Kickstarter. It plays 2 to 6 players. BGG has the rating of 7.3, weight of 2.96, and it's ranked 1,396. It should be much, much higher.
It should be.
This is a game where you're going out and digging for gold in Coloma, which is the city where gold was first discovered way back in 1848, I believe it was. And you're trying to go out and discover gold. You're trying to build buildings. You're trying to go out and tame the land. The really cool thing about this game is there's a simultaneous action selection with it. So everybody's going to, at the beginning of the round, everybody's going to pick which area they're going to go to. There's 5 areas on the compass that you can go to. One is to dig gold. One is to survey bridges and build bridges. Another one is to build buildings. Another one is to go out into the west and go around and explore different towns. And then the last action that you can select is to actually defend the town of Coloma, because at the end of the year, the bad guys are going to come and attack the town. So you have to be able to contribute to defenders of the town. All your meeples are called dudes. It's very, very thematic. It's kind of cool. You also have little wooden horses that helps with your movement in that area where you're going out exploring the different regions. I really like the game because of the simultaneous selection. And the biggest thing with that is if more than one person goes to that location, it busts. And usually there's 2 actions for each of those locations that you can go to. But when more people go to that area, it busts. So you don't get to carry out and do that second action. And that's really these moments that you have, or the cringe-worthy moments where I can't believe where you went to that spot and now I can't do what I wanted to do to really take advantage of the game. There is an expansion that's going to be fulfilling here very soon. I'm really looking forward to that one. Where I talked about busting, they actually turn that into from a bad thing to actually a good thing, where there's more tracks that you can use, and busting might be something that you really want to do in this game now. So I'm looking forward to getting that expansion coming in. I think it's going to be fulfilled by the end of the year is what we're hoping for. So that is my pick, Coloma Deluxe Edition specifically. Try it out.
So you mentioned that if more than one person goes to the same action, that's a bust. What you can also pretty much be guaranteed is that's also where I'm at. Because when we played this game, I was always at the one that was busting, and it was frustrating, but at the same time, I enjoyed the game and I wanted to play it again. I haven't had a chance to play it again, but I'm looking forward to hopefully someday being able to do that. I actually saw that Kickstarter, and I liked it enough to where I said maybe I'll actually buy that, even though I only played it once. But I think it was only the expansion, or it was either only the expansion or it was so expensive that I said I'll just play Pete's.
Yeah, the Kickstarter did have the expansion with it. You could also buy the game. They are reprinting it. That was part of the problem, was it's been out of print, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's just not as popular as it is, because you couldn't find it anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, so. The deluxe components come with they're not tokens, but they're actually clay poker chips for the money, which is fantastic. I mean,
he's really excited.
Yeah, I was really excited about that. And again, the meeples, really well done. Little dudes, little horses, good stuff.
No, I agree. I played that, I think, with you, Pete, as well. I was always busting, too, so me and Chris must be going to the same spot. So with the expansion, I might be back in on this game. If busting is a good thing.
Yeah, I played this game once. I remember it being very thematic, but other than that, I don't remember it. So,
a lot of fun.
Yeah. David, take us to your number 9 choice.
Yeah, so my number 9 choice is Quacks of Quedlinburg, made in 2018 by Wolfgang Warsch. And in this game, it is a true bag builder where you are basically taking little chips and you're putting them in your bag and you're trying to pull them out in a certain order to not explode your potion that you're trying to brew. While you're doing this, everybody else at the table is doing the same exact thing. So we're all kind of going around, reaching in our bags and hoping that we don't get nasty white poison
cherry bombs.
Yeah, white cherry bombs of death. And so, as you're doing this, you're constantly at the end of the round, you're building up, more chips in your bag. You're getting different combinations that you want to do. And you're kind of trying to go as far around this ring that's in your bowl as possible. So it's a really fast and kind of fun game that I like to play with a lot of even new people. You're just pulling stuff out of a bag and you just want to make sure you don't bust. And if you do bust, bad things happen to you. If you don't bust, good things happen to you, So it's just one of the original bag builders and one of my all-time favorites. There are a couple expansions to it that I haven't even broken into just because normally I'm teaching this to a lot of people, and so I'm never getting to that next level, which I hopefully can explore hopefully soon here. But yeah, what do you guys think of this? I know you guys have played this game before.
David taught, I've said this on a previous episode when we recorded this another time, but it's one of those games that I learned early on. It was, as David has said, very easy to learn. You're just pulling things out of a bag. You're looking to bust or not bust. You're trying to get to a certain number. Very easy, very straightforward, but a little bit of just, added thematic quality to it, which I think is enjoyable to play this game. I'd like to play the other expansions that they do have. I believe I played the Herb Witches before. And there's another one, or the doctors maybe. There's the alchemists. So there's some other ones that I would like to eventually get to.
Yeah. I have this game. I have the Geek Up bits for it. Really great.
I need to get those.
Yeah, you need to get those. They are very good. Really nice to pull them out of the bag. Just gives you that feel for it.
Yeah, this is a game that actually went into my algorithm with respect to, hey, this is one of the ones that maybe I thought could theoretically get in there. It didn't. It ended up at number 34 on my list, but it's fun. We talked about this in one of our episodes, and we talked then just how much fun it is to be reaching in there and just the agony of waiting to pull it out, and then you pull it out and it's either the best moment of the game or the worst moment of the game, depending on what you pull out. I do think that it can also, as light as it is, man, it stinks when it's the last round and you pull out a couple cherry bombs real fast. And like, there's nothing you can do. You might be able to do a little something to help manipulate it, but for the most part, you can't. It's whatever comes out. And regardless of what happens in the prior rounds, if you get hosed in round 9, you're not winning. And so that takes a little bit away from me, but I also think that's the game it is.
Yeah.
All right. As we move to our number 8, Chris, what do you have?
So my number 8 is actually very new to me, and maybe this is probably a little bit of call to the new for me, but I've really dived into this one, and I've had a pretty good time with it. My number 8 top game of all time is Grand Austria Hotel, designed by Virginio Gigli and Simone Luciani, and published by Lookout Games. So this is another 4 players max game, and the theme sounds a bit boring. You're managing a hotel, and you need to satisfy the guests in your cafe, and then you send them off to a room, and they do whatever they do in a hotel room. At the center, though, is a dice drafting mechanism that, for me, is really fun. I mentioned in an earlier episode, I really like dice drafting. This is a pretty cool play on that. Each number on the dice is associated with an action, and that action's power is determined by how many dice of that number are remaining. There are some side goals you're trying to accomplish. Plus, if you don't please the Emperor enough, then there are 3 times during the game where he'll really make you pay for it. There are some really fun decisions to be made, as well as a passing mechanism that gives you a do-over opportunity for the dice rolling if you don't see what you want. Fair warning, don't count on me to make good rolls, because I never do when I do that do-over. BGG has Grand Austria Hotel at 64 overall with a 7.9 rating. There are some things in the game that I can see being viewed as frustrating, maybe even flaws, but at least for now, Grand Austria Hotel has my attention and is my number 8 top game of all time.
I think I've been a bad influence on your on your gaming, Maracaibo, Grand Austria Hotel. This one barely missed my top 15. I like everything about the game. Again, it's just all the things that you said.
So I've not played this game, but I've heard Pete and Chris, rave about this game in the last couple of weeks. So it's a game that I definitely want to sit down and play at the table and see what they're craving about, because obviously if it's in Chris's top 10 already, it's something that I probably should be playing. How about you, Daniela?
I'm with you, but I feel like they know it too well now, and we stand no chance. So
I think it's a game that anybody can win. You really just need to focus on the goals that you're trying to get. It's a fun order fulfillment game. You're trying to get those resources, fill those orders, and get those people fed and get them up to their room. So
I will say, though, that on the first time you play it, don't make your decision after the one play, because it does take a little bit of time to get your head around, okay, how do I have to make this work? Because there's a couple things to put together, and
it's literally just checking people in a hotel, guys. Relax.
there's a few puzzle components to it.
Don't run out of money.
I won't. I'll steal from the guests.
Yeah.
All right. Number 8 for you, Pete.
Yeah, this one was one of my summer flings, in that I said it probably fell between 10 and 5, and it came in at number 8. And this is Lords of Waterdeep. You can play it with or without the expansions based upon how many players you need. This game scales really well. It is a great worker placement and order fulfillment. Those are the 2 components that I really like about it. That's pretty much the game. And there's a few little subtle things that you do. You have your main guy that you're acting as. You have a hidden goal and a hidden agenda to either get the most of this kind of order filled or another kind of order filled. Those are hidden to start, but they kind of flush out as you're going along. But those are going to give you game ending bonuses. But as you're going along, you're trying to recruit these workers, and you send them out to do your bidding and fulfill these contracts. Really fun game. It's very simple. It scales really well. One of my top 10 games that I have of all time. I play this game often and enjoy it every time I play it.
Yeah, this is a great game. I'll probably have more to say about it later, so I'll kind of pass it on.
I probably will too.
Yeah, this is number 18 on my list, so it didn't make the shows, but it was pretty close. One of the first games that we played together when I joined this gaming group, I enjoyed it right off the bat. Yeah, I think it was, 2012? Is that when it came out? So it's been around a while. There's been a lot of innovation on that type of game. But I think if you're going to introduce someone to worker placement, and one of the more traditional, brutal worker placements where you can actually block people and things like that, this is a pretty good one to do that with. And then you throw in the Scoundrels of Skullport, and then it changes up the game, and you can play it very, very differently at that point. How much risk do you want to take? How can you take advantage of that and not hurt yourself too much? I do really enjoy this game. Didn't make my top 15, but almost did.
All right, rounding out number 8, David, what do you have?
Okay, so for my number 8, I'm going with Dune Imperium. It was in 2020. It's also Pete's number 14, so we do have a crossover there. It was made by Paul Denon, and this again is a worker placement deck building game. Every time I think about how good this game is, it just keeps getting better for me. I know with Pete, we played a couple of the expansions recently, and I like the game so much, I actually bought the app recently, so now I'm playing it on the app because I can do different strategies on there and just play it and not have to wait around for all you 4 bums to come and play it at my house. So that is something that I'm really getting into and I really like. You know, I've heard a lot about Dune Uprising. I'm not sure how I would like that, but I do like Dune Imperium, the original one. Everything about it's really good. I just like how tight it is. And there's always a fight, and it's kind of where do you kind of pick and choose your moments in this game to battle in the system with your guys down there for the points that, you know, only become available every so often. And then I think the game has a really good arc so that as you near the end of the game, you feel more and more pressure as those points, you know, for the battles build. So instead of 1 point, maybe it's 2-pointer, and you know, the rewards are really tough and people are all neck and neck. It's 1 card away from winning. And I love that, you know, climax of this game is always at the right spot for me at the end. So it always finishes well.
We talked about this in the last show, and so I shared some of that. I enjoy this game. It almost made my top 15. I feel like sometimes I play it, I know what I'm doing, and sometimes I play it, I just don't. I don't know what it is about the game. I guess it's a matter of what's clicking, but obviously a really good game that a lot of people like.
Yeah, the deck building part of it for me, again, is really enjoyable. Just trying to dig through and find those combinations that really work. There's a couple different avenues to go through with those decks. So that's the part I really like, the deck building aspect of the game.
Yeah, if you want to hear all of our thoughts on this, we do have another episode that you can go back and listen to see what we did with this game in our Battle of the Funnest. So, all right, we got 2 more in this episode. Chris, number 7.
I predict this is one that Daniela thinks is in my top 5, but is not.
Let me guess. Cat in the Box.
I'm not sure what the voice is there. My number 7 game is one that I've had for quite some time, and I've played it a lot. I think my official count is 92 plays, but almost all of those are 4-handed solos. So you could say I've played this game over 350 times. My number 7 game of all time is Eldritch Horror, designed by Corey Knizia and Nikki Valens and published by Fantasy Flight Games. This is a co-op game for 1 to 8 players. There's a pretty cool and very dark narrative that runs throughout each game where you're trying to prevent one of the Elder Gods from the H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu lore from basically destroying the Earth. There are 3 phases each round. In the action phase, you take certain actions to position yourself on the board or to rest or whatever. During the encounter phase, you're battling monsters or closing gates, which are portals to other worlds, or generally encountering your surroundings. And then in the mythos phase, typically bad things happen that make you mad, or when you get to the point where you just embrace the chaos and embrace the insanity, they really jack up the tension, but really make the game. I've mentioned before, it can be brutal, really, really brutal. But again, I found that once you figure out a few things, you have a better chance of winning. But the best thing is, again, just to embrace the brutality of it, recognize you'll probably lose, and enjoy the ride. And by the way, there are 8 different expansions available that add new boards, tons of new cards, and so forth. I have all of them. Depending on what mood I'm in, I'll get out whatever I'm in the mood for and go at it. BGG has Eldritch Horror at 117 overall with a 7.8 rating. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, but the fact that it's so brutal and yet still ranks that high, I think is a testament to how good the game is. For me, Eldritch Horror is my number 7 top game of all time.
I can't believe it's not higher for you, to be honest. So that surprises me that's not in your top 5.
Yeah, again, this was one I thought would be up there, but actually you'll see a couple of the newer games that maybe speak to me a little differently. I think sometimes you play something enough and it's just, okay, I was also asking myself, which would I want to play? Would I want to play this again or not? And I actually got to the point on this where there's an official campaign in the last expansion that came out. It's not that great, but then people start posting, here's my version of the campaign. I took a bunch of those that were listed on BGG, created my own campaign version of a game, and that's how I play it now. If I'm going to play it, I'm not playing it once. I'm playing up to a 6-game campaign where the world's getting destructed if I lose, or I'm getting benefits if I win, and kind of, I guess I'm doing things to keep that interest in the game for me, but still, I have a good time when I play it, or if I'm not in the right mood, I just get ticked off and walk away.
So, Chris, you play this solo a lot, correct?
I play it solo multi-handed. Yeah, I always play 4 players, and I'm controlling all 4 of those players.
But do you think it would play differently with a group?
So I have played it with my son twice.
Okay.
We each controlled 2 characters at that time because 4 players is kind of the sweet spot. You can play it at any amount, but that gives you some freedom to move around. I don't play it with my son anymore because he got frustrated with it after the second play. He's like, yeah, that's not fun to me. I have never played it other than with my son with multiple players. So I'm interested to see when we play. When I'm playing 4 players, I'm doing everything.
Yeah, I think it'd be a different play for you overall, and I'd like to get that to the table at some point. I don't know if it's on one of our upcoming lists that we're going to look at, but everything you've said about it, at some point we have all talked here about losing with grace, and when you said, oh, if you want to learn to lose, play this game because it'll spit you out, it'll beat you up, it'll do it again and again and again and again. And I was like, all right, I can maybe handle that. But it's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to it, honestly.
Yeah, I had a game of this in the last campaign I played, and this game is so good at this. It's like, hey, I'm this close to winning. Literally, I just got to get through the Mythos phase, and there's only one thing that can kill me if it comes out of the Mythos phase. If the Doom gets to 0, bad things happen, and then it gets even harder. And Doom level was at like 7. And it's like so many things have to happen just in this one little phase. And by golly, it got all the way down because it just cascaded. And again, it was just that extra kick in the groin that hey, don't think you're so good. Here it comes.
Sounds like a combo of a couple hard games that we've tried to play before, like Zombicide and yikes.
A lot of flip tables at Chris's house for sure.
Yeah, I have not played this game.
All right, so Pete, what do you have for your number 7 game?
Okay, well, I think we got a crossover here. My number 7 is Maracaibo. We talked about it a little bit before. 2019, it came out, BGG, rating of 8.0, weight of 3.92. Right now, it's rated at 63. I enjoy this game. We played it Saturday. I also bought the expansion for this, which actually adds the dual layer boards. I know there's some issues with the original game where they're just your player mat or your boat. You're putting different components on. You have barrels you're trying to take off. I know they have some fixes for that, but with the new version, it actually creates a dual layer board. It changes up those reward tokens that you have to make them fit properly. So Dave and I played this Saturday, really enjoyed it. I like the multi-use cards. We talked about those and really just using those at the right time. So many times I've went to look for a card that I think I had and I played it somewhere else because I got all caught up in it. So planning on this game can be challenging. It can go long. It can go a little bit faster. Again, it's really based upon how quickly you're moving the game along. So that is my pick for number 7, Maracaibo.
Yeah, I mentioned in the last show I really enjoy this game. It was in my top 15. Burned myself out on it because I played it so much. Really heavy, a lot to think, but the really good decisions, like you said. Hey, I really want to hire this person so that I can get their benefit, but man, I really need that tobacco right now to do something for me. And so that little bit of a decision with those multi-use cards is fun.
Yeah, you got to be willing to let those cards go at the right time.
Definitely.
For other thoughts on Maracaibo, you can check out the previous episode. David, why don't you take us to your number 7?
Yeah, so my number 7 is actually really fresh as well. I know Chris had said he mentioned one earlier, but this is a game that's kind of hot off the press. It's Nuculum. I'm going with Nuculum is made in 2023. So just last year it was by Simone Luciani and David Terzitsky. And it's a heavy Euro with a really cool action, like tile selection kind of system that works in it. And, to me, if you like games like Brass Birmingham and stuff like that, I feel like this game plays like those games, but it does so in a way that gives you a little bit more agency. You're not as locked in. It's a little bit more open to the point where you can shoot yourself in the foot in this game pretty fast by, using a action tile instead of playing it for an action tile, using it for a rail line somewhere so that you can kind of increase your network. So in this game, basically every tile has 2 actions on it. You could either play it for both of those actions that are on that tile, or you could put it on the map, and you could put it anywhere on the map. There's no restrictions ever. And when you play that tile down on the map, you're starting to build your network, but you can never take that tile back into your hand to play it for those actions. And there's 5 main actions in the game. And, if you end up spending one of those tiles early that might have one of those 5 actions in it, you're gonna have to figure out a way to figure out how to get one of those tiles so you have that action back into that game, or else you might be without it for the rest of the game. So there's a lot of stuff that goes with it. But the reason why I like the tile selection is because in this game, when you play the tile for the actions, I love that you get to do both. A lot of games, you're always choosing one or the other, especially like I like multi-use card games. You're choosing it for one of those actions. On this one, I like that when I play that tile, I know I'm going to get to do both actions if I want to, and I can do them in whatever order I want. And to me, that's really exciting and kind of refreshing. I feel like it's always, I'm going to have a good turn because I know what I'm doing there. And then I have the agony of saying, do I actually need to put this tile out on the board to match different colors so I can use those actions, but also to build my network or to cut somebody else off potentially from coming into zones? So I've been playing this game. I know we just played this game recently, but I've been playing this game solo a couple times this week. And to me, every time I play it, it just unlocks more of that puzzle. And I really am liking I feel like how many different ways there are to actually play this game. And my mind's kind of blown right now for that. So I think that's probably the reason why this is so high. We'll see if it stays there, a year from now. But for right now, it is definitely a game that is in my head a lot that I'm thinking about. So what are your guys' thoughts? I know you guys have played this recently as well.
This is Brass Birmingham on steroids, is the way that I would explain it. Going into the game, I thought I was going to be able to do fairly well, thinking the way that Brass Birmingham works, and I did not. It's really the scoring options that really change the game up versus Brass. I do like that action selection with those tiles. I think that's fantastic. I would love more games that have that in there. The scoring part on this game, though, I think is where I get a little bit lost, or just I got to get a good understanding of how to score well in the game. And I think that's challenging because you can build anywhere and create a new network. But if they're not connected together to create your own big network, you're not going to score as well.
And I think we learned a lot that with our first play about, okay, how would we play this differently the next time we play it, now that we actually understand where the scoring is coming from. I think we also learned that when you get to the scoring phase, it's brutal trying to figure out, okay, how many points do we actually have? Let's take the next hour and a half and figure out what the score is. So, but I think we also all went home after our first play and we're texting each other the next day. Man, did you spend all last night thinking about this game? So yeah, we kind of did. So
the theme really doesn't click for me. It's not something that I really enjoy, kind of like that industrial type revolution look. Again, we did go home, Chris, and think about a million different ways, because I thought at one point, I was like, I'm doing really hot on my money, on my resources. I'm moving up these tracks. I thought I was doing really well when I was looking around, looking at other people's. And then, yeah, as we're kind of just saying, the scoring really kind of threw me for a loop. But I think overall, I need to understand a little bit more about the power and the generating and how that works in throughout the game. But overall, I think we had frustrations, but fun too while playing it, because we were all kind of in the same boat, kind of learning it as we go along. It will be played differently next time, especially with some of the end game scoring. We're like, oh, no wonder there were cards based on that city, because that's where you want to go. So, and for me, I thought we were going to build a lot more on each other, and nobody helped me out building railroads. So forget you all.
We would do that differently next time, I think. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I also heard is David's been practicing so he can blow us away
I
next
know.
time.
No, I'm probably not.
Did.
No, I don't know. I've been getting my butt kicked by the AI, so we'll see.
All right, we're on our last game of this episode, and we're going to go to Chris, number 6.
Yeah, my number 6 probably won't be a surprise to anyone. I expect maybe we'll hear it on some lists later on. Pete, you mentioned that Nucleum is brass on steroids. I don't like drugs, so I went drug-free here. This game is number 1 on BGG, but for me, it's my number 6 top game of all time. It is, of course, Brass Birmingham, designed by Martin Wallace, Gavin Brown, and Matt Tolman, and published by Roxley. The listeners are probably pretty familiar with Brass Birmingham. It's network and route building using multi-use cards with a great shared economy. You place buildings out on the map, some of which provide resources that anyone can use if they can build a network to access them, and others that are primarily point and income builders. It's an awesome puzzle. It could easily be higher on my list, though I personally think there's a slight flaw with respect to the power of cotton mills, but it's still awesome every time I play it. And if you think that I just summed up everything in that game in a matter of 20 seconds, you're in for a hurt. And if you just go, this game sounds easy, go in. You got to wrap your head around it, but then once you do, man, it's just a blast to play. As I mentioned, this is number 1 on BGG. It's got a massive 8.6 rating on there. And for me, Brass Birmingham is my number 6 top game of all time.
Yeah, hard to argue with a lot of what you said, Chris. I'll probably be talking about this game a little bit later.
Yeah, I will as well. I can't remember who brought it to game night first because I know I bought it probably after that. Was it David?
I played it with David first.
Probably me.
I was out shopping with my wife, and I got a call from David saying, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" I said, "Well, I think I'm shopping, but let me see, what I can do." And next thing you know, I think it was it you, Daniela?
I played it once last year.
I think it was me, you, and David that ended up giving it a go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you went out and ordered. I think I ordered it while we were sitting there. I think I enjoyed it that much, and it was on my radar. But as soon as I played it, I knew I needed it. So
It's like, so that is his drug. Yeah, I knew I needed
There you
it.
go.
Yeah, I've only played this once last year. We're going to get it to the table this coming Friday. Pete and I are going to play this. And why are you looking at me like we're not?
we're playing it.
Oh, okay. So we're going to play this, and I will have more comments on it at a later date.
I think that was his. You're going down.
I know. He was staring me down like, geez, go easy. Go easy on me. Okay. All right. So that is number 6 for Chris. Pete, what do you have for your number 6? Last one of the episode.
Yeah, my number 6 I'm obsessed with, and the game is called Obsession. This came out in 2018. It's a 1 to 4 player, but you can play it with 6 with the expansions, which I have coming on the way. I actually have some. And there was another Kickstarter for it that I was actually able to communicate with the creator of the game, and he actually added me into the Kickstarter. So I have that coming along with some metal coins for it. So I'm looking forward to playing that.
That's awesome.
This one has a BGG rating of 8.1, a weight of 3.1, and it's ranked 60. And this was a game that came out as a Kickstarter, and I think it was one of just those slow burns where it kept creeping up, more of like a cult following, because it's the best way to get to it is by going out to the website and ordering it from the guy who created it. I think there's a few locations where you can buy it off of the different sites, but it was hard to get, and I was glad I was able to get a copy of it. With this game, it's very thematic. If you like the Bridgertons, or what's the other one, Downton Abbey, you're going to like this game. And it's really unique because they call it action selection retrieval. So you have some workers, and those workers are different. That you have examples like a valet or a housekeeper, maids, and footmen. And the other part of the game is you have your family, which is a deck of cards, and you start out with 5. And the object of the game is to actually gain the prestige of your family, bring your estate up and make it more popular, and bring in these more influential people into your circle. And those people come into the game as cards into your hand, and you can continue to play them. But in order to play them, you do have to have these workers. So you might have a particular guy who's at a certain level, and he needs a footman to go with you. So you take that footman, and then you go and you do an event. It might be a fox hunt. It might be lawn bowling. Ladies might have a whist or whatever that is. I think it's a card playing game back in the day. So with the game, it's very thematic, and as those workers that you have go out and do that thing, after they're done, they come back and rest. So you can't use them right away. So there's this little bit of circle going on with your workers, and trying to plan what are you going to do next with what you have in your estate, because at the end of your turn, you can also buy an expansion to your estate. And your ultimate goal is to win the hand of the Fairchilds, I think is what they are. And you're trying to get the most prestige, have the most of the things that the Fairchilds want, because there's some cards that flip over, and there's like 4 quarters of the game. So each of those quarters of the game, those Fairchilds are looking for whoever has that most thing. Maybe it's the most of a particular tile color, something to that effect. If you have the most, then that card comes into your hand, and it's really powerful. So it's a really unique deck building game. Great worker placement, action selection. That is my obsession for this summer. I got it. I'm loving the game. It really rocketed it up. Obsession, number 6 for me.
This may just be a rumor, Pete, but I know you're the Deluxe of Fire. I thought somebody told me that you ordered a French maid outfit. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's his first dungeon.
Yeah. We played this game. I played it once. You guys may have played it more often. I played it once with David and Daniela. I feel like you guys really liked it. It just didn't click for me. I don't understand why it's so popular for me. I'd be okay if I never played it again. I'll leave it at that.
That's because I won, Chris. Don't be
That might be part of it.
The overall, I would say the game is elegant, which is different from a lot of other games that we've played before. A lot of other games have very thematic, over the top, great artwork and things like that. So I would say it's very dainty and elegant. We could probably play this some morning over tea and crumpets. David, your wife could help with that. She's British. But the overall theme, it's okay. It doesn't really do anything for me, but I thought the idea and the concept behind it was extremely interesting, and I don't know why it clicked for me, but it did. But I've only played it once, so
Yeah, I mean, I also like Obsession. It's probably, I don't even know if it would be in my top 50, but it is a game that I would gladly sit at the table and play. I do think it has some interesting things that it's trying to do, especially like you were saying with the action retrieval and kind of just how do you put those people out there and kind of what order so you can get them back in your hand. So you're kind of always constantly looking around, I feel like, and asking yourself, what order am I putting these people out so that I can get them back so that I can play these cards. And that puzzle is very nice and tight, I think. So I have nothing bad to say about it.
good. All right, so that's Obsession for Pete. Let's move on to our last of this episode, David, number 6.
So they say that great minds think alike, and in this case, I think they're right, because me and Chris have Brass Birmingham both at number 6 on our list. Chris left out one of my favorite parts, which is loans. You could take loans in this game. He also left out beer. There's beer to be fought over. There's just so many things about this game that really just pop for me. It's almost the exact opposite of Nucleum, where this game is just super tight. You don't always feel like you have the agency to necessarily move around, but you kind of have to get in. I want to say, you get into the seat early, like on an airplane, so you can kind of get your position. So when that next person comes in, you're kind of, you got your seat and you're comfy for that 2 to 3 hour ride, and the other person might be like, hey, you're in my seat a little bit. But, that's just kind of how it is. Who has the armrest? I feel like this game is all about positioning. The canaler is first, so you're trying to position yourself so that when you get into that rail era, that second era of the game, that you are in a good position so that you can kind of outmaneuver your opponents. But this whole game is just really tight. Every decision you make is of great importance. I feel like every time you play something, you're always second guessing yourself. Is that the best position I could actually put myself in? And to me, that's what makes a great game, is that when you're always just thinking about what you can do on this board, and the board state is constantly changing based off your opponents, you're not really letting the game play you, but you're actually involved in playing the people at the table. And this is a game that definitely brings it out. So if you like player interaction, if you like yelling at other people, maybe losing some friends, this is the game to get, in my opinion. So that's why I like it. How about you guys?
We might talk about it a little bit more later.
Okay, good. Perfect.
I thought you would have this in your top 5, so I wasn't too far off.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. As a reminder, we'll be dropping the third and final episode of this series next week, where we cover our top 5 board games of all time. We hope you enjoyed the show today, and we'd love to hear your opinions on this episode or the podcast in general. Send us an email at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com. Visit us at thefifthmeeple.com website, or hit us up on social media or in our BGG Guild. Better yet, we'd love it if you'd leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And if you do, we just might read it on a future show. As always, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, may all your days be perfect 10s. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.
Adios.
Your first every stinking episode. Every episode you're first.
Wait, this isn't the game I was thinking of. Saying hit us is so stupid.
I was not talking into my microphone that entire time.
I really like quacks.
Doo-doo?
Do.
Finish your thought. Yeah, finish it.
I don't have a thought. It's wrong.
I'll cut that one out. Whoa, gee, hey, look out.
Easy.
Is anybody else hearing that?
Whatever. Have fun editing these last 2 episodes. Okay.
I'm aware.
All right. So
Something else we got to talk about, man.